Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, once again in the diaspora and in St. Lucia. Welcome to Moving Forward. I have heard for some years now, something at times makes sense, and at other times comes across as if the individual who thinks in that manner has no ethics, and is one that has no morals or values. Yes, I'm talking about the idea that was concocted by the leader of the opposition, that the truth is what you believe it to be. It is not about right or wrong, but what you want it to be. Are we not seeing this with the ex-president Donald Trump and his supporters? Well, St. Lucians must now come to the realization the type of individual we are dealing with, who is at present the leader of the opposition, is a real tropical Trump. Before I continue, let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Oh, Father, we thank you for seeing the plight of St. Lucia and its people. You saw their needs and therefore was not happy with what you saw. The last Prime Minister came like a light in shining armor because he promised so much, but he delivered so little. And I would say nothing but lies from top to bottom. And some were paid to perpetuate those lies. Then we saw at the time of need a doctrine called the Fortuna Doctrine, which was fully supported by the Prime Minister of their supporters. This individual, oh Father, I'm sure that when you saw what that fool was leading or heading this country into and doing all manner of things that was stifling the country, you decided in your wisdom to send us the deliverer. And it was in the person of Philip Joseph Pierre. And I hope that if he should want to leave, then we have one in Alva Baptiste who is similar in nature and of the people. Yes, Father, our deliverer, Philip, one who believes in you. We thank you, O Lord, because you knew best. And from July 2021, we have seen 3 budgets that every year has surpassed what was before. So now we have a budget that is tremendous because it has something for all. One that stands out without a doubt. It's the bill that deals with the minimum wage, which was badly needed, Father. Oh, we have really become hopefully a developed country. We thank you, Lord, for all you have done for the country. We glorify and thank you with all our hearts because without a doubt, you are the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords. Amen, amen. Blessed be your name. Tonight I quote from Sirach chapter 38, verses 24 to 34. A scholar must have time to study if he's going to be wise. He must be relieved of other responsibilities. How can a farmhand gain knowledge when his only ambition is to drive the oxen and make them work, when all he knows to talk about is livestock? He takes a great pains to plow a straight furrow and will work far into the night to feed the animals. It is the same with the artists and the craftsmen who work night and day, engraving precious stones, carefully working out new designs. They take great pains to produce a lifelike image and will work far into the night to finish the work. It is the same with the blacksmith at his anvil, planning what he will make from a piece of iron. The heat from the fire sears his skin as he sweats away at the forge. The clanging of the hammer deafens him as he carefully watches the object he's working taking shape. He takes great pains to complete his task and will work far into the night to bring it to perfection. It is the same with the potter, sitting at his wheel and turning it with his feet, always concentrating on his work, concerned with how many objects he can produce. He works the clay with his feet until he can shape it with his hands. Then he takes great pains to glaze it properly and will work far into the night to clean out the clay. All of these people are skilled with their hands, each of them an expert at his own craft. Without such people, there could be no cities. No one would live or visit where these services were not available. These people are not sought out to serve on the public councils, and they never attain positions of great importance. They do not serve as judges, and they do not understand legal matters. They have no education and are not known for their wisdom, so to speak. You have no education and are not known for their wisdom. You never hear them quoting Proverbs, but the work they do holds this world together. When they do their work, it is the same as offering prayer. The word of the Lord, thanks be to God. Tonight, before I begin in earnest, I once again will introduce my friend, the ambassador of Taiwan, to the show because, once again, it is that time of year when the World Health Organization should be aware that health for all to achieve is important. Greater health for all countries must, therefore, all countries must be involved, including Taiwan. From May 27 to June the 1st, the 77th World Health Assembly, WHA as we call it, takes place. Therefore, my question simply is whether Taiwan will be allowed to participate. Many of us know the answer because of China's obstinacy. If they are not taking part, or this group, why is the so-called WHO don't rename itself World Health China? WHC, I call it. Why am I putting this forward? Because they seem to dictate to the rest of the world who should sit on that body. They seem to be in control as to who should be taking part. What amazes me is that a great deal of World Health Organization's body is in favor of Taiwan being part of that body. Taiwan, however, is unable to contribute meaningfully because of China's objection. Therefore, the health rights of 23.5 million Taiwanese are being thwarted by the destructive measures of China. In my view, politics in health is unacceptable as Taiwan wants to extend its hand to the Global World Health Organization when considering that they are one of the top countries in terms of the treatment of viruses that suddenly comes on the scene because of their research capacity. There should be an openness in the WHO regardless what China says or does. I tell you this, my brothers and sisters and listeners, I foresee Taiwan sooner or later taking part because they will be like a phoenix rising from the ashes regardless what China says or does. Now at this juncture, I want you to hear the ambassador for Taiwan in St. Lucia, my good friend, Ambassador Chan, as to what he has to say to us and the world. Peter Chen.
Good day, I am Peter Chen, Taiwan Ambassador to St. Lucia. As the World Health Assembly, WHA, will convene on May 27, I would like to invite all my St. Lucian friends to join us in urging the World Health Organization, WHO, to include Taiwan in all WHO meetings, activities, and mechanisms. Over the years, Taiwan has proven itself as a steadfast partner in defending the right to health of people everywhere. In St. Lucia, Taiwan has fostered a strong partnership in healthcare and medical sector with all stakeholders. From medical masks, wheelchairs, NCD prevention project to various training courses, Taiwan-St. Lucia cooperation serves an exemplary model of WHO's commitment to an inclusive approach of health for all. Taiwan is committed to participating in international health governance with professionalism and pragmatism approach, and seeks to cooperate with WHO to construct a comprehensive global health framework. However, as the WHO and many countries begin to review the pandemic response strategies and to negotiate on future pandemic prevention and response measures, so-called WHO Pandemic Agreement, Taiwan unfortunately continues to be excluded from global health system. It not only jeopardizes the right to health of 23 million people in Taiwan, but also undermines the collective efforts to make global health architecture more resilient. My dear friends in solution, Taiwan can help, and Taiwan is always here. Please join us in urging the WHO to uphold the value of inclusiveness and allowing Taiwan's meaningful engagement. It's time to include Taiwan in WHO and WHA. Together, we could create a healthier, more sustainable, and more equitable world for everyone. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you once again. Oh, tonight I feel overjoyed, and I hope that even those who don't support the government or me, by the silly comments they make, will be honest with themselves and say honestly that this was a budget that surpassed all others before, because it is one of substance. I say this with a passion that overwhelms me, because I truly feel elated because we have a Prime Minister that cares, and we should acknowledge that and don't let him down. I say this for the world to hear, that he's a child of God as a Prime Minister. The previous Prime Minister we had had little in him. Then we had the ex-Prime Minister Stephenson King, a man who really cared also for the country. I say this without flinching because it is not about party, but about the character of the men and women who care. Remember, when Steve continues to say that he now sees what he now sees of the party, he keeps saying again and again, c'est pas flambeau. Therefore, he's simply devastated what the party has turned into. What is amazing is that he's saying so in all honesty. He recognizes the freedom and democracy that we want, or it requires that participation is needed, and therefore responsible action from all of us. And not just the FFF, friends, family, and some foreigners. He was aware of that because of one of the most horrible hurricanes we had, called Thomas, under his leadership. Individuals like Philip, who has aspired to public office, would listen to the cries of all the people. The last Prime Minister simply failed to do so. His ears and eyes were closed to the suffering and deprivation that was taking place in some instances, as I've expressed before. Kenneth Galbraith emphasizes that without food, national rights are quite useless. Nothing, he rightly asserts so comprehensively, denies the liberties of the individual as a total absence of money. Galbraith further asserts that in the good society, the affluent would still be affluent, the comfortable still comfortable, but the poor would be part of the political system. Their needs would be heard, as would the other goals of the good society. Kant, I'm sure, was of the same opinion. And without a doubt, the present Prime Minister is of that same opinion because his budget reflects that. Oh, tonight, I feel good because hardcore UWPs I've met have spoken. And not the United Records of the Poor supports this budget and thinks that it was excellent. Therefore, I'm told that the leaders of the opposition, who was absent from the House due to a family ailment, I would love to believe that. However, I have my doubt, as it was coming from someone who has continually lied to us and to the nation. And therefore, one must take whatever he says with a pinch of salt, as we say in England. Knowing the individual, as many of us do, he should have confirmed this with the nation, more so where his constituency was concerned. What I would like to ask at this juncture is, even though he was allowed to speak 15th, what would he have said about the budget? What criticisms would he have had with a budget of this magnitude? This is a question I would certainly like to get an answer to even now when he's back. I'm sure as night follows day on his return, he will have lots to say to his media cronies, which would be meaningless. Anyway, it is a form of skepticism on my part when dealing with this character. On Saturday past, one of his ex-ministers met me up north while I was discussing the budget with a few loyal friends of the Prime Minister. And this ex-minister had nothing else to say to the three of us about the budget. She was more concerned in calling the Prime Minister useless on crime. And what a bad Prime Minister he is. The three of us just ignored her, so much so when she realized the boob she had made, came back to me to ask me, "How are your children?" I was somewhat perplexed. I said, "Fine," as she walked away, looking somewhat very embarrassed and puzzled. This is the same lady that had been saying as loud as she could that she had finished with politics. This is a classical example of someone who just cannot bow out gracefully and should have come to the realization that she had a long innings, because as a politician, she was simply useless. Here was a lady who had a lot of talk but no action. In listening to this lady, I realized that the Prime Minister has nothing to fear. The question I'd like to ask her, if she was so worried with crime, why her party did not use some of the money they wasted, more so the $7.3 million they had literally given to their friends for vaccines we never received, or did not need to beg them to return it so that we can put forward or towards fighting crime. When she failed to realize, what she failed to realize is that we could have used this money to put the new technology we need in some areas of the country to deal with the lawbreakers and to pinpoint them on camera. That had not crossed her blurred mind, I suppose because it was not important then. We now have to find the money to do so. I also want to know, what did they put in place to deal with crime? Were they not knocking down buildings that we could have used to fight crime? Not only that, they spent 5 years in government and did not build or have plans for a hall of justice. Maybe, yet maybe, if his father had built one, they would now be housing the justices there. What made me laugh when I hear people like that talk is to look at the simple things that Stephenson King, Kenny Anthony, and Philip Japia used as an office, designated to them as leader of the opposition. Question: did Alan accept this office for the opposition leader? No. The answer is simply no, because it was beneath his level as leader of the opposition. That is the character of the individual we are dealing with. I will say it once again to him, to please leave our politics and go back to the country that you said you were a product of. This is a disjuncture. I will take my first break and I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And I was getting very excited, and it's good to be back. Ladies and gentlemen, listening to this program, I want to tell you that after listening to the budget, I felt elated because without a doubt there was a new dawn, and it had certainly arrived. We saw the beginning of this from July 2021, when the new government came into power. My brothers and sisters, there was no doubt that as darkness floated over our heads for 5 long years, and many of us prayed to the Holy Spirit to relieve us from this misfortune that engulfs us, our prayers were certainly answered. And I'm almost in tears saying that. Now a light has appeared because of our thinking. A prudent and courageous Prime Minister Philip Joseph Pierre is here. He is putting the country back on course. He is, in my opinion, very astute and will without a doubt turn out to be one of the best prime ministers, not only in St. Lucia, but in the Caribbean as a whole. I must say that when I look back at the people he chose as ministers, my only worry, to an extent, was his choice for the Minister of Education and elsewhere. But he knew best at what he was doing. On this front, I now see his wisdom, and therefore I've come to the realization that no one is perfect, and that every day is a learning process. Therefore, when you are wrong, you have to admit that you are. Nevertheless, I have no bone to pick with anyone. Truth for me is forever on the throne. There are 1 or 2, I believe, that should be moved elsewhere at this juncture. Again, that is my belief. Nevertheless, I have no bones to pick with anyone. Again, I say loud and clear that honesty is always the best policy. On another note, I was informed that the leader of the opposition was not in the House because he informed the Speaker why he would be absent. Well, I certainly, as I've said before, have my reservation. Could it be a valid excuse? More so when he did not get to speak when he wanted in 15th place in the House debate? The mind certainly boggles. I want to say to the Prime Minister personally that it seems as though if those who now want to speak about CIP just to upset the apple cart, so much so they are now experts of the alleged corruption they knew about when in office, yet today they have so much to say, and in trying to pass the buck, as we were told by one before, the truth is what you want it to be. Well, I don't, because a simple question I would like to ask is, did we not allow T.O.R. King to have our monies in a private account? Therefore, where are those monies? That was the same company that the last government was allowing to come here from St. Kitts Galaxy for CIP, which at the time, so much was allegedly being said about them in terms of what was going on with the hotel that was taking ages to being built on that island. So much so, many were asking, why is it taking so long? Yet, they were being allowed to come here on a CIP project when so much negative statements were being made about the company. Then coming here, they built a monstrous building in Canals to house workers. It looked without a doubt, I'm not kidding, a Chinese prison. Words had it that the building would house almost 2,000 Chinese workers who would be coming here visa-free. I want to ask the last government, is that true? This was known all over, even in China, I was told, as has been alleged. The last government was simply not afraid of the alleged money laundering stories that was being cast around the place and how it would reflect on them as a government. They were simply not concerned because it was all about them and not the reputation of the country. On another note, tonight I feel in the mood to delve into the minds of Alan Chastanet And I somehow embarrassingly came upon a document that tells me a lot more so psychologically, what frame of mind that this individual is all about. I came upon the National Development Corporation chairman's interview in 2002 in the Business, can you imagine it, Focus magazine, when he made the comment that information and technology are directly linked to development. The chairman went on to say that how St. Lucia could become a favored destination for the information technology industry and the role NDC hopes to play in making that happen. He assured us that the full support from government and NDC, which is the National Development Corporation, was important. Why? Because we need to raise the level of income dramatically in this part of the world to keep abreast with what is happening around us. He went on to say that if we do not, the gap of disparity grows wider by the day. He therefore calls for an expansion of education based on the latest computer technology. To be honest, I was rather shocked to read this, as it was coming from no other than my good friend, Sir Michael Chasney. Yet, it was his son, as Prime Minister, who took away the laptops that the Labour government was given to all school children to help in that new technology world we were entering. What was so astonishing was that during that year, Kennedy Anthony, in his budget address, set aside $6.1 million for a new technical institute at Cicerone, which did not come into effect, but which did come into effect. And after 2 years, the Minister of Education then closed it down and reverted it back to the Cicero School. That to me was the biggest mistake ever made by a minister. In this day and age, this minister did not have the foresight then, like the NDC chairman before, making a move in that manner. Not only that, Kenny also set aside in his budget $3.2 million for the Vieux-Fort Primary Technical Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, it is at this juncture I want you to be patient with me as I look into unraveling the ideas of leadership and what makes one so different than the other. We now have the classical example in Philip Joseph Pierre and the previous Prime Minister. And we will be looking into the last nearly 8 years of government in St. Lucia. Therefore, in trying to assess politics and leadership of this country, it is evident that personality has got to come into it, because it doesn't make a difference. However, the question is, when it makes that difference. It is said that the powers of the Prime Minister are what the holder of the office makes of them, and which bears mute testimony to his potential. Clearly, the budget of Philip Joseph Pierre in the last 3 years simply cannot be compared with what we witnessed under 5 long years under the last government, which seemed to have been a lot of talk and grandiose ideas that never materialized or bore fruit. Students of political psychology, like myself, have 2 prime interests. One is clearly asking the question as to what sort of people psychologically we are speaking or looking to. 2, into politics. And 2, what effects does the personality of the office holder have on political outcomes? Well, we have 2 individuals before us. And for me, there is no doubt that the social and educational backgrounds of such political elites comprise one of the best tiled areas in empirical political science to look into. One, I go on further to ask whether politics attract people with particular types of temperament. Does political leadership draw to its ranks those best fitted to perform its task and discharge its burden? Does politics invite, as one might suppose, the self-confident, the secure, and the stable, or even the apprehensive, the sensitive, and the moody? These questions have been relevant because of the past prime ministers we have had, more so the last and the present. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the categories we have to look at when assessing Philip and Alan. I now ask the question as to whether the choosing of Alan was simply a misnomer in the selection procedure, or was it due to his position in terms of color, money, which was not his, but his father? I'm pointing this out because these attributes have an effect on the decision making or maker's temperament, and therefore the judgments he or she makes in office is of even greater significance. Don't forget the guy who says he'd rather have a white man leading him than a black man like Philip J. Pierre. Therefore, the temperament of the decision maker is argued, is not relevant, because decisions are imposed by the nature of the situation. Yes, sometimes you have to think very quickly. I differ from that view because the background of the upper middle class may have an effect on the decision maker's judgments. When you look at Philip and you look at Alan. When I look at Alan, the trace I observe is that the sources of a particular temperament, of unusual behavior, goes back in time to early childhood experiences and relationships, because he can get it all maybe at that time. Philip didn't. Alan's aggressive and authoritarian character traits, or indeed of his dogmatic tenacity, has a lot to do with childhood. I'm seeing that with a lot of children. As mentioned before, a child or two or three, that is what the brain begins. That is when the brain begins to absorb all it can and put back into the long-term memory. I do apologize for being academic on this front. There is no doubt in my mind that knowledge of political leaders' childhoods may nevertheless throw light on the motives that drive them and the rewards they obtain in political life. One can look at a political leader's relationship with a demanding, censorious father. This provides a convincing explanation of the rigidity which can be displayed in some key episodes of this individual's academic and political careers. What I've come to realize is that political leaders differ in their strengths and in the kind of skills in which they excel. One vital talent is the capacity to influence, or to put it more starkly, to manipulate others. More so, what I would term effective manipulators. There is no doubt in my mind that some politicians are much better endowed than others with these skills. What we saw in Alan, in my view, was that he had the proficiency as a manipulator than anything else. So at this juncture, I'll take my next break. Welcome back to Moving Forward, and I was talking about proficiency as a manipulator. So I'm going to continue on that because it's important. So when much of that manipulation begins to recede, as the populace catches on, he begins to lose his touch, he or she, and makes crucial blunders, which in the end leads to their undoing. And in this case, Alan, in all what I have said tonight, the one thing that seems to be coming to bear on my thoughts is the idea that the leader of the opposition told us in no uncertain terms that the truth is what you believe it to be. I ponder on this because I have always believed that the truth deals with honesty and not what you think honesty should be. This to me is hypocrisy and deceitfulness at the highest level. Therefore, I want to tell the individual that if you tell the truth, you will not have to remember anything in future. We saw this on several occasions when this individual said that the country was broke. And then he said that he never said so. And what he said is that the country did not have any money. The other time we encountered this individual being unable to tell the truth because he virtually could not recall what he said. And that was clear when on an interview overseas, he said that $1.5 billion was going to be invested in St. Lucia. When challenged on a radio program by his friend in St. Lucia, he was adamant that he did not say so. What he did say was $1 billion. However, further to that, when challenged outside the House, he was adamant. He never said so. It is recorded. There are so many other instances as far as the present leader of the opposition is concerned. When he made certain statements as Prime Minister of this country and later denied, even though it is, as I mentioned before, recorded. No wonder no one is missing this individual. And I am sure Mikus South don't miss him and what he has to say. I believe that he is missing being Prime Minister. That is for sure. Because he probably misses the money, the rubbing of shoulders with other leaders of the Caribbean and the world. Not about working for the country per se, in trying to elevate its position in the world. He simply does not care because he made it clear to the people of the country, more so those in Mikus South, that he was not a product of this country. There is no doubt in my mind, and he'll say that he didn't say that. So there's no doubt in my mind, and I have said so before, that the United Records of the Poor, if they want to return to the fold as the United Workers' Party, then they will have to find a new leader, a new deputy leader, chairperson, or etc. And a string of other individuals who seem, in my view, to be soulless. And that is what I also call their society. When I hear Alan and his poodles talk about crime, you would never have thought that it was their party that brought in what was called Operation Restore Confidence. It is a fact that this was necessary, but done in the wrong manner overall. I believe sincerely that it should be brought back by this government, but not in the manner as was alleged to have taken place, as this cannot be allowed to happen again. We learn by our mistakes in life. The inquiry, which they had, impacts, have shown this. However, what I want to point out is that when you hear the opposition talking, you would think that crime never took place under their watch. These individuals would like to give the impression to the mendicants, jackasses, and barking dogs that they were holier than thou. That is why this lady met us up north could not think of anything to say about the budget, but only to make derogatory remarks at the Prime Minister in reference to being useless as a Prime Minister because of crime. individuals like this lady really think that St. Lucians are mendicants, jackasses, or barking dogs because their leader have made them believe that? If they continue to think that way, then we will have a lot of crying to do because, or they will, because they just won't be coming back. And you know who said that? The deputy leader. They won't be coming back in government in a hurry. Was that not what their now deputy leader said in the House to the then opposition, the Labour Party? They are without a doubt a bunch of dishonest people or party. Don't forget, before the last election, their motorcade was so huge that they had never seen one like this in this country before. Were we not told that it was yellow as far as the eye can see? I want to continue to remind that deputy of this. Once again, they were virtually telling Labour supporters, don't bother to turn up to vote because it would be a wasted vote. Well, St. Lucian sent a message to them that made it clear that the people were not frightened no more, and that they must go in a manner that was shocking, and that they are still unable to recover. St. Lucia on the 21st of July 2021 made it clear that the only thing that they had to fear is fear itself. St. Lucia knew that here was a lion of a leader in the person of Philip Joseph Pierre, one who would fight for the forgotten man or woman. So much so, there was meaningful attitude and a determined voice as he spoke to the people of the country in making it clear that he was about action, and action now. This is what we are now seeing in the budget of 2024-25. I'm more convinced than ever before that the dark clouds that hovered over us somewhat began to lift, literally from the skies of Castries and beyond. And in the hearts of every St. Lucian, peace and tranquility was returning to all those who were prepared to accept the coming of Philip Joseph Pierre willingly and without force being applied. Philip, as an economist, realized many moons ago that the only way forward was for government to stimulate the economy, invest in great public works, and feed the hungry by bringing in projects that would create employment to those who had nowhere else to turn, more so those without any special skills, but are basic laborers. What Philip came to the realization too was that, unlike his predecessor, was that people don't eat in the long run. They eat every day or starve, and hence the lure to crime. Philip was without a doubt a pragmatist, yet he was guided by an idealism that reflected his instinctive sense of the common good and the fair society. Along with the gleaming phrases in his budget, it was without a doubt full of optimism, one that radiated everything he said. It also expressed timeless ideals, social values, more noble than mere monetary profits. In his budget, there was an honor in place of callous and selfish wrongdoing, a trust in the future of essential democracy. So on the 24th of April, St. Lucians heard and saw for the first time in their Prime Minister what he pledged that day and what others across the global world would come to know, even in the dark days that hovered over us. That courage and devotion will benefit us in time. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, whether in St. Lucia or in the diaspora, on April 24th, we heard a prophet of what I would term the St. Lucian dream. It was one that summoned every St. Lucian to confront the nameless, unreasoning, unjustified error which had paralyzed the needed efforts that we needed to do for 5 long years, converting retreat now into advance. Ladies and gentlemen, under Philip, we boldly asserted that this great country of ours will endure no more as it has endured under Alan and his band of merry men and women. However, there's no doubt that we will revive and prosper under Philip Joseph Pierre. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip in his budget showed that there was no time to wait or to ponder about. His address signaled the start of an onrushing period that will transform St. Lucia now and in the years that follow. It was one of those rare approaches or speeches that in themselves changed the course of events. These great words were great works that altered the consciousness of the country's people. Those words had the power to move this country and had an imperishable power to move us all and all those privileged to hear him. Therefore, I would like to ask those who prefer to concentrate on crime instead of the budget to tell us the level of crime in the country before COVID-19 and during that time. Yes, I would like to tell them that the level of murders before COVID was very high. The figures are there, and therefore the truth is there, and not what I think or believe it to be. Somewhere I listened to a program from the United States by someone asking the question as to, when did we lose our way? Well, comrade, we lost it when we stopped loving our neighbor as ourselves. Basically, when we began to think of the I instead of the we. During that period, less was being achieved, but we were too blind to see. Much of our selfishness in this country began when we had politicians who did not really care for the people as a whole, but only those who supported them. When some wanted to step into the colonial master's shoes because they had a conscience, and when we basically became materialistic. Looking back, when I left St. Lucia, after leaving St. Mary's College to go to England, I made sure that anything I earned then, over half of my wage would go to my mother. And it was taken out of my pay and immediately sent to the treasury here. My mother made me laugh when she told me on one of my vacations that she used to send my father to pick up the money every month at the treasury because she wanted him to see what children can do to help their parents. She had 8 of us in those days. I did this because she was my mother, and an excellent one at that. I therefore owed her everything that I was and everything that I am. That was my thanks to her. When we lose respect for our elders, most so our parents, and become really greedy and selfish, then we are beginning to see our self-destruction. It was a gradual process, but now it is like an epidemic, and we are literally seeing it unfold. Yes, indeed, we have to put measures in place, and all this will cost money. And the same lady who made the statement that the PM is useless is dealing with crime simply because she forgot that she was in politics since 1997 and did nothing in getting the equipment and facilities needed to fight crime. It's at this stage I'll take another break, but I'll come back to continue this. Welcome back once again. As you could see, I'm so excited. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And I was talking about that lady And I was saying that she is there since 1997, but her voice was never heard because she was pretending to be saving souls, maybe her own. I therefore believe sincerely, as I have said before, that the police needs to have new technology on every major road network of the country. We need more police motorcyclists on the roads also. Therefore, money has to be found, and friendly nations like Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, Belgium, and even to ask the UK that instead of reparations, to give our policemen and women the tools instead to do the job. Others mentioned can give us the machines we need. Our police must also be trained to the highest possible level. And not only that, refresher training should be held every 9 months. I believe sincerely that our court system must be well organized and that it should be unblocked by having more cases sent to mediation, as we have seen in Australia, where 90% of cases go to mediation. I sincerely believe that another Operation Restore Confidence, as I've mentioned before, should be brought back, but must be well organized. Because of the previous mishandling that took place, according to impacts. However, I stand firm by making it clear that we should not allow the United States to be interfering with our law and order, regardless of the Leahy law which they have. We are an independent country and should not be subservient to any country, regardless how small we are. Not only that, we should be asking our American counterparts, what are they doing to stop the guns, the ammunition, and the drugs from coming into the Caribbean? There's no doubt even to the layman that much of it is coming from the United States of America. When you listen to the opposition, you would think that they always had crime under control. Maybe, just maybe, they did not. They did with their own canine, their 2 canine dogs, so to speak, which they accused this government of getting rid of, as though the dogs were doing so much. That to me is a joke. What else can one think when trying to assess this present opposition and past government, who simply have no shame because they are the barking dogs and jackasses that their leader spoke about? Oh, tonight, I wanted to talk solely about the excellent budget that was presented by the Prime Minister in the House last week, but the opposition, with their lies, their innuendos, and blatant propaganda about crime, etc., left me no choice but to take them on. What amazes me is that they are now also harping on CIP as if the government is dishonest. They are deliberate in trying to project figures that shows as if the government is using CIP money unwisely and dishonestly. These propagandists seem to have a short memory, that it was during their time in office that there was poor management of CIP funds, even to the extent of price dropping. And not only that, the United States needed to have an inquiry as to how funds were being managed. They were the government of the country that destroyed what we had in place to deal with CIP. Oh my God, these thugs are so dishonest in what they say. Now they are trying to concoct stories about this government, trying their best to pass the buck in terms of their alleged dishonesty and corruption of those funds. Did they not allow T.O.R. King to have his personal account from the CIP monies collected? And to this day, no one knows how much he collected. He must have thought that our government then were prime asses, because it was so easy to pull the wool over their eyes. In one of the sittings in the House, Kenny did ask as to how much have T.O.R. King collected in CIP monies and what is in his escrow account to date. Simply no figures have been given. So far, we have heard nothing, because all we are hearing is that DSH was not part of the CIP project. If that is so, why then did T.O. King have an account dealing with CIP monies? I have never heard such an ambiguous and concocted claptrap of answers in all my life. I certainly smell the stench of an alleged corruption. Their surrogates come to spew out a bunch of lies that is dishonest from the time they open their mouths. To the ordinary layman, it just does not make any sense. These imbeciles who simply think that they are crafty or who cannot determine right from wrong are without a doubt individuals who simply do not care. If T.O. King was upfront with his money, then tell us how much he has spent so far. And would the present government be able to find such an account? Not only that, where are those horses he spent so much money on buying? At present, they are not here anymore. Do we still have to pay for them? And if they are sold, how much were they sold for? These are valid questions. We the people are asking, and we want answers from the past government. What they seem best at is to continue harping on crime when they know very well that crime is everybody's business. Did not their leader say that the crime is the fault of the young 18-year-old who has 1 child, 2 children, 3 children? Did he not say this even to the opposition in Trinidad? Ladies and gentlemen, we must stop playing dumb, because the opposition in their shallow minds think that we are morons who don't have a mind to think, and they can come with their crap and utter garbage and we will believe it. One of their glorified supporters in the United States said quite categorically that if he can't find answers, he will deliberately spread rumors so that the government will have to answer. Can you believe it? It shows, and he laughed about it too, it shows you have how callous these individuals can be. And they are paid a lot of money to do so. We see this happening here also on some media networks. No wonder their leader was called Tropical Trump, because he is no different. I believe in facts, and also believe in doing some research, because I'm internationally renowned for doing so, as the Taiwanese can attest to that. Because I was that highly renowned individual that had allowed me 2 research fellowships. And as I mentioned before, my second one was to go to the prestigious top research institute, Academia Sinica, and to research what? Culture of China and Taiwan. Yes, a black West Indian man doing such a research. Now I want to remind those listening to this program, I don't want you to forget an individual very high up in the opposition who said quite categorically in Creole, si mwen ni pou fè kwim, mwen kay fè kwim pou ko mwen, paske mwen pa ni moun, o pieson pou fè kwim bon mwen. This has been said because there is talk that they are worried about an investigator, Lindquist, that was brought in from London to ascertain certain alleged misdemeanors. They did harp at that, but they simply forget about Ascensia, Lockerbie, and the Roseau Dam desilting fiasco, which was simply a travesty because of the monies that were involved, and therefore questions are being asked in terms of alleged corruption. That will be for the next show. As always, time is approaching when I have to conclude. However, I do make it clear that once again, we have tried to be truthful because truth is forever on the throne. We therefore have to conclude, however, only and to say that the government cannot let up, and therefore we must continue to pound the opposition with the truth and to put into being that marvelous budget of 2024-25. There are certainly great days ahead, and I say so to each and every one of you tonight to go in peace and to serve the one Most High, but also to thank Him because we were born black and should be proud of that, brothers and sisters. Therefore, I say to you, go in peace to serve the one Most High. God bless you, and without a doubt, I look forward to seeing you next week. Hope that jazz is a success. God bless you, and goodbye and good night to you all. Good night. God bless you.